Welcome to the DEC4 podcast. You can access episodes, companion articles, research notes and links, as well as information about our contributors and supporters at DEC4podcast.com. Hope you enjoy the program. One thing I would like to ask your perspective on, David, is a few years ago there was an interview with Jonathan Taplin that has always stuck in my mind, and he was talking about Levon Helm and how Levon Helm was earning reliably $100,000 a year in music royalties. And with the advent of streaming, this income virtually dried up overnight. And he was becoming ill at this point and left him in very difficult circumstances. Can you perhaps give your perspective on, and I guess it's a career management issue, perhaps artists of Brian's generation or Brian himself, how this seismic shift affected plans such as they are?
I'm laughing because the Beach Boys never had plans.
Right.
With the exception of James William Guercio, there was never Peter Asher or a David Geffen or Clive Davis. There was nobody guiding their career. So that you had Brian Wilson making the next record, and Capitol would put him out as fast as he could make them.
Yeah.
And with no sense of, well, maybe we're flooding the marketplace or anything like that. Give us another one, give us another one, give us another one. So that to the point where they have to do Beach Boys Party to satisfy Capitol's demand. Capitol has to put out Best of the Beach Boys to satisfy sales quota. So you've got a rudderless ship where Brian's the musical captain and Mike is the touring captain.
Mm.
But in terms of long-term career direction, there's none.
Right.
Ironically, Jack Riley did them a big favor when he came into the picture by telling them, "Okay, guys, you got to write about what's going on now. You got to do longer shows, etc." And in that very brief period between the release of the Surf's Up album and Holland, they were suddenly becoming underground and hip and building a new audience and rebuilding an audience. It wasn't until Endless Summer came out in 1974 that all of a sudden the old hits were new hits again, and the battle that Carl and Mike would have on the road as to the balance of how many old ones are we going to do versus how many new ones. And that's, in a sense, they were the first classic rock oldies band, if you will.
The first legacy act, I always call them. Yeah.
Yes, it's a good way to put it. So now we're looking at it's 51 years of them touring where the set probably has the same 20 songs and then some other songs. And that's what audiences want to hear. So you can't fault them for that. However, because of the lack of real career direction in the 60s, they're nowhere to be found for years. So even when they put out a great album like Sunflower, the record company does all it can do, but they're the Beach Boys, and FM DJs are not going to play the Beach Boys. It's not hip. It's not cool. It doesn't matter how good it is. And so they're kind of the victims of their own 60s success that they don't escape until it happens again for them in the 70s, and then they retreat into the shelter of that, never to emerge. From a Beach Boy fan point of view, that's kind of the tragedy that I lived through watching that all happen, because I was there going to see them when Surf's Up came out and when Holland came out. And they're spectacular shows. I mean, Carl would do Surf's Up. So they were really great for a while. You listen to the Beach Boys concert album from that era, and you get a sense of it. After that, it becomes more and more oldies, and then I reach the point where, okay, I don't need to go see this anymore. And then you're listening to one album after another that's just disappointing. You keep expecting something, that's just not going to happen. And you make allowances, and you say, well, there's this one good song on the album, and that's a great one, and
Yeah.
But there's no cohesion to it. Dennis Wilson is the one who comes as close to a great Beach Boys album with his first solo album. And I often wonder, what if instead of that being solo album if that had been the next Beach Boys album. And that wasn't going to happen. Dennis wasn't going to get an album's worth of copyrights. George, I didn't answer your question.
No, but it was fascinating anyway.
So yes,
that was good. That was great.
So there was this thing called oldies radio in America. And if you had a bunch of hit records, say you were Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil or whomever, you were regularly on an annual basis from ASCAP or BMI for radio airplay getting a good six-figure check.
Wow.
As was Brian. And by the time that stopped, Brian was already a wealthy man. Not wealthy in Dylan, Springsteen, or Paul Simon terms, or Taylor Swift terms, but comfortable. And sadly, his solo career, as good as I think it's been, and I think his solo career is worthy of him being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a solo artist. I think his career as a producer is worthy of him being inducted as a producer. That'll be someone else's battle to fight. Someone else is going to have to write those petitions and get to work on that. But in a sense, none of that matters to him. He would go to the piano, and as he said in 65, he would play Fields until a song came out. And one day a song like Love and Mercy came out. And one day a song like Melt Away came out. And another day a song like There's So Many came out. And Maybe Let Your Hair Grow Long and Let It Shine. And his first solo album in 88 was a terrific record. Lenny Waronker, the president of Warner Brothers Records, says to Brian and Andy Paley, who was working with Brian on the record, would you give me something like Smile? And Brian doesn't say no. Instead, they go and they do Rio Grande, which was staggering.
Wow.
Here it is. He's done a whole bunch of pieces, and they've stitched it together, and it works. So we're all living in this Smile dream bubble for decades. And part of the dream was that if he ever finished Smile, whatever that meant, we felt that would relieve him of this terrible albatross he'd been carrying, and that he would go on to make more great music. And the older he got, the less likely it became. But lo and behold, Brian Wilson Presents Smile is followed by That Lucky Old Son and the Gershwin album, two terrific records. And so none of us were wrong to believe in the dream of Smile or to believe in Brian, love him unconditionally. It just took a lot of us to kind of a critical mass to get to the point where Brian Wilson Presents Smile became a reality.
You can get in touch with us at DEC4podcast.com or leave a comment or question on SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, or our social media. Follow Gary Wells at soulrideblog.com, your home for vintage leisure, and Oliver Crocker at devonfirebooks.com and at the Bill Podcast on Patreon or your preferred platform. Check out some great travel videos and tips from Steve Collins on his YouTube channel, Steve Collins Traveller, formerly Please Tell Me Where to Go. Our original instrumental theme and mellow sounds are thanks to Detlef Wolf and hardworking Gainesville, Europe's top Tom Petty tribute band out of Germany. Find them at gainesville-band.com. We take some external guidance on the fair use of potentially copyrighted material for commentary and critique. Details at our website. The DEC4 podcast is available under Creative Commons. This has been George Fairbrother. Thank you for listening.